Welcome back to my workshop and welcome back to my garage. This is video number 4 in my great guitar build-off scratch build entry for this year. And what we're going to go over in today's video is basically getting the neck to this point right here. As you can see, I've got the headstock pretty much shaped. I am going to round these off a little bit once I put the cap on it. I've got the neck profile carved. I've got my volute carved in. I've got my heel pretty much carved in. I did put it in the body and mark on the heel of the neck where the body's going to be to. So I did kind of contour that. That's pretty close to final shape right there. I've got the fretboard installed, slots cut, inlays put in. I used abalone dots for the fret markers, and then on the sides I just used black plastic. I kept this basically pretty simple. The neck profile came out really nice. Still got a little bit of fine tuning on that and final sanding just to get it exactly right. The volute area came out really nice. The canary has a really super nice look to it with it being carved, and that came out really nice. It's got a nice straight grain pattern to it, which is going to look really nice once the oil gets on this. And this fretboard has a real nice flame to it. So let's get rolling with the video and see how we got to this point right here. I went ahead and I remarked my center line on my fretboard, and I went ahead and I marked out my fret locations for my fret markers and got them centered between the frets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drill my fret markers, my fret location markers now before I start radiusing the fretboard. The main reason why I want to do that is because right now everything's flat. I can get a good level surface to drill on, and I don't have to worry about things rolling. I'm going to be putting the markers in the center, down the center, so standard fret marking layout. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just using a center punch to identify the holes. That way I got a good surface to drill into, and I got a good starting reference point. Let's see if you can see these in there. I've got just a little reference mark on each one as I drill in, so now I can drill down and get those drilled in. And what I'm doing now is I'm just drilling 1/4 inch holes in my spots to where my fret markers are going to be. There we go, all my fret markers drilled in. So the next thing to do is get set up and start radiusing this fretboard. So what I've got, like I said, is I've got my fret inlay markers already drilled. I'm going to leave those holes open for now. I'm just going to mark up the side of I'm taking a pencil and just running it across the fretboard. This is going to let me see as I sand. So you can see I've got the fretboard kind of marked up. It's here on the table. I've got my Maximum Guitar Works Maximum Guitar Works radiusing beam. I've got that super glued masking tape down to the fretboard or to the table, so that's secure. And then what I can do is I can just take and go back and forth with the neck. This way I can keep good pressure. I can make sure I'm getting uniform pressure on the neck, and I can make sure I'm staying straight on the sanding beam. Right now I've got 80 grit on there, and you can see it's taking off a little bit on the sides. It's starting to, but I've got 80 grit sandpaper on there now just to, kind of get the surface going first. And as you can see, it's starting to take off. You can see it wearing off on the sides, and as you can see, it's staying a nice straight line. So that means I'm getting good constant pressure. So I'm going to have a nice level or straight fretboard when it's done. There we go. I'm going to keep going at this, and I'll bring you back when I'm a little bit closer to being done. As you can see, making pretty good progress here. You can see just the line in the middle is all that's left. I don't know if you can see that. Fretboard's getting that nice radius to it. I'm almost done with the 80 grit. Then once I get down to this line and that center line disappears, then I'm going to go ahead and switch to 120. Sand the 120 scratches out of it. And then the same, then I'll switch up to 220. Sand those scratches out of it, and then get ready for the polishing phase. All right, so that's it with the 120, and I'm just going to take my 12-inch radius gauge here just to check, make sure I'm what I'm supposed to be. And I'm standing a nice 12 radius all the way up and down the board. See if you can see that there. Nice 12 radius. Okay, I am going to have to go through and recut my fret slots. because as I radiused it, you can see on the side there, they got really shallow. So what I've done is I've taken my saw and I've put some blue tape on it to the depth of my fret tang that it needs to be. So what I'm going to go through right now is I'm going to go through and recut all the slots. That way I know my slots are going to be deep enough. Well, that kind of sucked. I forgot to turn the camera on. So I do have my dots glued in. What I'm going to do now is I've filled the gaps a little bit with some super glue that was there, and now I'm going to go ahead and get these polished up. And then to polish these, I still got my radiusing beam set up. Now you can see it's just taking off the tops of the, going to smooth that out and make them flush with the fretboard. Let's go down through here and check radius again real quick. Make sure I'm right where I want to be. 12 radius, 12 radius, 12 radius, 12 radius, 12 radius all down the fretboard, so that's good. Again, I want to just check, make sure that I've still got it flat and level. And that's nice and level all the way down the fretboard. So that came out really super nice. Now I'm just going to go over this with some 400 grit, some 600 grit, and then eventually up to 1200 grit to polish it. What I'm going to do now is I'm getting ready to install the side dots. What I'm doing is I'm just going to use standard black dots for these. I just want the nice contrast between that and the maple, and I think that's going to look really good with the flame maple and those dots and the black dots contrasted with it. So I've got my lines marked out on the side, and I found my center between each fret. Before I mark it, I'm going to do a double check just to make sure that everything's straight. That way I can make any final adjustments before I mark my hole locations on here, and then we can get to drilling. What I've done is I've come 2 millimeters from the base of the fretboard where the fretboard and the neck blank meet. So what I'm going to do now is I just want to double check. I've got center lines drawn using my protractor with the centering tool on it, or with the centering location on it, and I'm lining it up even with my frets, with my fret markers, or with my fret locations, step locations. That way I know exactly where to go. So I've got my hole marked correctly there. It's right there. And I'm doing this before I carve the neck, just to have kind of a flatter surface to where I can gauge my center lines on to make sure I'm in the right spot. So I've got now is my center punched holes in. Now I can just take a drill in so I can install the black material. There we go. I got my jig set up here. So yeah, the hand drill I was using to drill those, I got this from vintagetoolshop.com. Part of Crimson Guitars. I was in the UK last year, and I was lucky enough to make it down to the Dorset area to go visit Crimson Guitars and take a look at the school and the Lutherie school and all the things that they've got going on there. It was really neat to get to talk to Ben, get to actually lay my hands on some of the guitars and whatnot that he's built and that you've watched on the YouTube channel as it went up. And while I was there, I went ahead and stuck my head upstairs to vintagetoolshop.com because I knew I wanted an old hand drill. So yeah, they had exactly what I needed, thousands and thousands of tools. Those guys were really busy. They were constantly boxing up stuff, getting it out ready to ship out. So just a shout out to Ben and Crimson Guitars and to vintagetoolshop.com. Great sites. If you haven't been there, definitely take a look. And they've got some great tools as well for great prices. So now that my holes are drilled, all I'm going to do is just to drop a super glue, stick this down in, trim it off. It's just going to be a nice contrast there. And just a reminder, when you're using super glue and whatnot, it's always good to have some eye protection on, just in case. As you press something down in there, you don't want any glue squirting out. And I'm trimming these off a little proud, which is fine, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back with the chisel, smooth them out after the glue's nice and dry. All right, there we go. Side dots are installed. And once I'll do is I'm going to let this glue dry, and then I'm just going to trim those down, give a quick sand along the edge of the fretboard, and it'll be good to go, and then we can start radiusing this neck, or carving the profile into this neck. So to carve the neck, what I'm going to use is basically the facet system. So if you see on the neck, I've got a center line drawn right through the center of the neck. Then what I did is I measured from the center of the neck to the edge of the neck, found the center line there, drew another center line there. So you'll notice I got 3 lines on the back of the neck. On the side, I came up 2 millimeters from the fretboard, and then went from that to the top and found the center. And now I'm just going to facet those. And as I facet, I'll continue to increase my facets between each facet, and it'll round the neck over. So let's get rolling. So as you can see, I'm just carving away between the first facet line here, which is the halfway point, and the halfway point there. Just taking my wood rasp. And as you get closer to the line, you just want to pay attention to where you're at. I notice that I'm closer to the line here on the side than I am on the top, so I'm flattening out my stroke a little bit to bring that in line. Now that I'm pretty close with my rasp, I'm going to switch to my file, and that's just going to give a smoother cut, and it allows for finer cutting. And it also allows me to have a nice smoother surface when I go to set my next facet lines. Believe it or not, your fingers are such a good gauge on how the neck is doing, because you can run it along and you can just feel the rises and the dips. And that's where this file comes in really nice. It just removes just that little bit. So you make fine adjustments. Don't know if you can really see it, but you can see the line's just gone there, and it's just gone on the side. So I've got this nice facet in there now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut the same facet on the other side. So the first facets are cut in. You can see it right here, this first facet. And then you can see another set of lines. So what I've done is between the edge of the facet here and the center line, I've drawn another line. And then from the middle of the facet to the edge down here, I've drawn another line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to round those corners, that corner off, and round that corner off on both sides. And then that's going to give me pretty close to a nice profile on the neck. And then I fine tune the rest by hand, going through with sanders or whatnot. So let's get rolling. And you want to take it slow and easy, because as you cut in with this, you're cutting your smaller and smaller facets. So it's going to go quicker. Then you notice what I'm doing is I'm going to the bottom line first, because that's going to be the harder to see when I'm doing my from top. So once I know I'm to that line, then I can roll my rasp back to get the top line. Okay, I've got the initial profile cut into the neck. I've kind of got the heel taken care of a little bit. I still need some cleanup work there, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start working on my volute. And to start with, I'm just going to use a gouge to kind of take this out and get it to the shape, get it closer to the shape I want before I start attacking it with the files. You do want to be careful here not to go into the area of the neck that you've already done, because you don't want to gouge it, especially if you're close to the profile you want. So I'm going to take it easy going through there. In the past, I've always filed these down, but I recently got some gouges, and it does make it a whole lot nicer to kind of get to that initial shape. Now that I got that a little bit closer to the proper shape, I can come in with some files now. I'm being careful now that as I'm coming close to the area of the neck that I've already done, I am being careful not to overshoot into that area. But you can see the volute's kind of starting to come to shape. All right, the neck profile is pretty much done. As you can see, I've got the volute carved in. Still need a little, I'm going to do a little work on that. I got one little bump that's a little high on it, but that'll take care of as I go through. I went ahead and I've worked on the heel of the neck, so that's good. You can see where the tape is, that's where the body's actually going to be in, so I wanted to make sure I had that so I could kind of get this heel right. The neck feels real good. It's not really a 59 profile, it's kind of a 60 slim taper profile on the neck, which is really nice. I still have to put the flame maple veneer on the headstock and drill the tuner holes. I'm going to shape this a little bit. I'm going to take these points off. This was what the template had. I modified a little bit to suit my version of the headstock. But overall, this neck came out really good. It's a nice carve. I've got it sanded to the point where all the tool marks are gone out of it. It still going to need a final sand, and like I said, I'm going to need to touch up a little bit in this volute area right there. But the neck's coming along great. So this build has been going very well. I'm pretty happy with it now that the temperatures have cooled down a little bit and I'm actually able to get back out into the workshop. Please, if you like what I'm doing, click like, click subscribe. I do reply to all the comments that I get, negative or positive. Luckily, 99.9% of everything has been positive feedback, so that's great. I am happy with the way the channel's going. I would like a few more subscriptions, but I think that'll come in time. But if you like what I'm doing, again, please click like, click subscribe, follow along as I go through this build. And until the next time, take care.